Yo, 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 what's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads out there, and especially all you garners? This is Weedman 420 with the Weedman 420 Grow Hour. What's up, Big Earl? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome, and you want to know why?
Why?
Because I'm going to get high with you, and we have a special guest in the house. Terp Fi3rd, what's up, brother? How you doing?
What's going on, Weedman? How's it going?
I'm doing great, man. Totally fired up and stoked to have you on this show. I did a little exploring because I'm a newbie grower, you know, and I've been mentored and coached by Big Earl here for a while now, a few years. But going on your Instagram, let me tell you something. Holy shit, man, fire. So I'm super stoked about this episode because we're talking about genetics. And we're talking with the legend here that Big Earl has told me about, and I'm super stoked to have you on the show. But before we get started, let's fucking smoke, man. Let's get high. Let's get baked. So since you're our guest, you got to smoke. And two, tell us what you're smoking.
Blackout truffle. Blackout truffle flower, blackout truffle rosin. Man, I call it the desert island strain for me. Like, I have a real bad ADD with strains in the sense that if I smoke it longer than 3 days, it was something special because I'd rather just every day, if I could smoke a different strain every day, different terp profile every day. That's the guaranteed way to deal with kind of the tolerance issue, right? But the blackout truffle, really anything for me, anything myrcene heavy, I could smoke it all day, every day, any day. Not for everybody, I suppose. A lot of daytime nappers, I guess, out there. If you're hitting too much of the myrcene, but yeah, for sure, blackout truffle flower hash all day. Yeah,
nice. I do like a terpene that's myrcene in there a lot. I'm a downer guy. I like the low. I like the mellow. I like the chill music, movie. Lay with Mrs. Weedman, hang out. It's right up my alley. Little be carefuline too. Little linalool, little limonene in there too. Give that whole full flavor balance. But yeah, you're right up my alley right there. Big Earl, what you smoking, brother?
I rolled up a couple joints, but I think the first one I'm gonna smoke is the sparkling wine that I just took down. It's one of the chilled wine haze crosses. But that blackout truffle, you sold that in a box set, right? I think I got that whole line box from you. Maybe like a year ago or so.
All of those crosses are amazing. Like every one of them there's not a ton of variation in that whole line, even though they're kind of different crosses. The Napper 1, the Napper 2, and the Blackout Truffle, all amazing strains. And we just saw the same thing with some Ego Death, which is essentially the Blackout Truffle cross to the Mecha Godzilla. And just absolute resin. Beautiful resin coverage, tons of terps.
Sweet.
You just posted a bunch of pictures of that, right? Like on your Reddit and on Instagram.
Yeah, very recently, yeah.
Big Earl, what am I smoking? This is your strain, so tell everybody what I'm smoking.
That is, it's not I found these seeds. I couldn't find who made them. They're in the stash. It just said Chemsis times Psychosis cheese. Both strains that I don't have like deep work with or in the repertoire. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to run these. And, the terps weren't as heavy as I wanted them to be, but they had this like nostalgic flavor for me. So I knew I had to work it and get it out there. So, I kept a male that really made me happy too. We'll see what he does. We'll see.
Nice. Mrs. Weedman smoked it before we started the show. She took a couple rips off the bowl, and she said to you, very nice.
I'm glad she liked.
Cheese is usually a win.
It was the biggest problem I have to work into it is that anything that wasn't super bright, anything that was like under like 8 or 10 inches of canopy was just like didn't come out close to quality. Like I couldn't find that. I like a third of my yield was just mids on it. So I'm gonna work it better and hope to keep that old school in it that I liked.
Well, Mrs. Weedman does like cheese strains, so anything with cheese in it works with her really well. Not my biggest favorite. I love cooking with cheese strains. I think you and I have talked about this, Big Earl. I love baking and I love making butter and oils with anything cheese. If it's a full cheese strain, like something hits me differently and it just knocks me out. It goes heady, real heady. But I do like the chem. The chem part of it is perfect for me. So there'll be a good balance. And this is the first time I'm smoking it, so it'll be very interesting. Especially that after this show, I'm recording the next show after this with Mrs. Weedman, so it's going to be interesting. So double banger, as we like to say. So, but I'm super stoked. And as Terp is banging a dab, and did you make that yourself, or is it somebody you know?
Yeah, it's personal rosin.
No, nice. What is it? What is
sorry
the
about
rosin?
sorry about the torch noise. I kind of realized after I started.
Anybody around the
torching.
world gives a fuck about the torch noise. That's the first torch noise on the show, so I think it's even better.
Dabbers up.
So, what are you smoking? What's the rosin you made?
Blackout truffle.
Oh, that's
blackout
it?
truffle.
Okay.
And
Sweet.
back to what you were just saying about chem, though, the beautiful thing to me about the blackout truffle is it has all of the terps of your GMO with all of the like kind of spoiled food, mothball, like almost bad Thai, spoiled kind of, but it's also it's got the punch too of like a chem of like an average chem. GMO or chem cis, chem 4, but it's got a lot of myrcene too. So it's by the end of the day, like you're napping unless it's what you do. Like unless it's your thing and that's what you do.
Right.
Like you're napping.
Yeah. So let's talk about you, Terp. I want to get to know you better, and
Awesome.
just because Big Earl spoke highly of you. A couple of people, when I posted the post earlier, saw that you were coming on the show, and a couple of buddies of mine were like, big hitter coming on. So I don't know you well. So I want to get to know you. So tell us your story, man. I want to know your story. It's all about the stories on this show. So tell us where you started, where you like, what got you into it, man, and what you do.
Absolutely. So I'm originally from West Central Georgia, Columbus, Georgia. Grew up 18 years. Both of my families were military families. I didn't serve anything like that, but that's how we kind of ended up in that area. Picked up weed pretty much in high school, early high school. And by the time I got out of high school, was growing myself. Like you kind of have the epiphany one day that like, this is just a plant. I can get pots. I can get dirt. I can get seeds. I can grow weed. And I think, we all have that point where we realize it's cheaper, easier to just grow it yourself than it is to continue paying somebody else to do it for you. You have better quality control. You have better, you have control over everything that you see. And essentially picked up breeding early on because we didn't have access to seeds. Like when I started growing in 98, 99, 2000, it was pretty much Mark Emery. Or you flew to Amsterdam to buy seeds, or you picked seeds out of brickweed, to be quite honest. Or you happened to get some really good weed one day that just had some seeds in it. And out of pure necessity, you cross two plants because you don't want to lose and you don't want to, something happens and you didn't keep a cut and you end up with some seeds. So early on, it was really just necessity. I didn't do a lot of selling seeds. 2017, found myself in Denver, had been there for a few years doing the kind of dispensary grow, commercial grow shuffle.
How'd you like that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, tons of experience. I at the time, I had been growing for 18 years. So when I went to Colorado, I looked at it like I was paying my dues. I looked at it, I was learning from people who were supposedly more experience. That didn't end up necessarily how it was, but that was the anticipation, After a couple of years, realized that it was just easier for me to do seeds full time. And, started kind of 2016, 2017, putting together my own lines and releasing my own lines. It really picked up heavily 2020, pandemic. Everybody needed seeds. Everybody was ready to grow their own weed. We've never seen a place in this country where we have more states legal allowing people to grow weed, or at least people feel safer to do so. So, lately it's just been the hunt, trying to find unique terp profiles, trying to find profiles that people find helpful for whatever their needs are. And really just trying to find what's next.
What do you say, like, this development of your trade and of your forte? What was that got you there? Like, what was that point where you knew this was for me? This was life. This was I know what my was, but what was it for you?
High school, man. I think, for me, I found weed early on, and it was something that I realized without a whole lot of hesitation, this was something I would be doing the rest of my life.
Love
to
it.
some degree.
Hell yeah.
It was an immediate thing. And I've told people before, very straight faced, weed saved my life more than once. And I don't say that ironically. I don't say that hyperbolically. It saved my life and gave me purpose more than once. And growing weed has been one of the most important things that's ever happened to me in 40 years.
Hell yeah. I love it. That's awesome, man. That's good to hear, because that's what we preach on the show, man, how well weed can help people out and what it does. I mean, it's I say it all the time, there's angels in those leaves. And if people believe me or not, I don't care. I know there is. So that's dope, man. That's awesome. When you were out in Colorado, and were you working a small craft grow, or were you working a corporate grow?
I've done it all.
So here's the thing that
Everything.
getting Big Earl and I have talked about, because he did a little bit of a corporate grow too. Just go into that corporate grow versus what you've done it all. Mm-hmm. What do you say the craft growers that you know in the industry versus the big corporate grow, and give me a little background between both?
Yeah, absolutely. The short answer is the best weed is never going to be grown in a warehouse. It's never going to happen. You can have as many of them as you want, and people will still buy the weed. Not to say that doesn't happen, but the best weed will always be grown in much smaller, much easier to control grows. The problem with a lot of the grows that are that big is that every decision is made financially, because there are no small problems. As soon as you have an issue in a grow that big, it's already a bigger thing than, if you're just growing in your tent and something small goes wrong and it's kind of, I lost this crop. That's no big deal. But when it's millions of dollars of weed on the line, and every bit of that has to be accounted for one way or the other, decisions aren't necessarily made in the customer's best interest. They're not necessarily made in the interest of what's safe or sanitary. It's often more of what's going to save us money. And a lot of those big grows, especially, they run on a real thin margin. They're not making millions and millions and millions of dollars. It seems that way. But because of the way the banking laws are set up right now, a lot of the weed money that's made can't just be spent, and it can be spent, but it can't be put in a bank.
Right.
So it has to go towards the next build out. It has to go towards the next hash lab. We got to open an edibles lab. We have to have, so that kind of pushes things to a degree of, we don't really care about the quality. We just need the next crop as soon as possible.
Right. Kind of looking at like New York right now. Some of the articles, they got $750 million worth of weed just sitting there and got nowhere to sell it. 300,000 pounds. That's all big grow, right? To get that kind of grow going, right?
Right.
You're gonna get fucked,
Right. It's a race to the bottom. The first thing that happens when a state legalizes is everybody tries to grow as much as they possibly can. They don't care what it is. We just need as much as we can. Then they issue a few more licenses, so those grows come online. Now those people are able to grow as much as they can. And what you see is they just need to grow weed. They don't really care what it looks like, what it smells like, what it tastes like. Most of their customers are just enamored with the fact they get to buy weed from a person in a store for the first time in their lives.
Yeah, it's
That's
exciting.
huge for a lot of people, especially people kind of even a generation older than me. That's huge to be able to just say, you know what, I'm not going to go to jail for this. That's crazy.
I remember my first time going into a legal dispensary. I was in Portland, and I went to Electric Lettuce, and this was 2017, 16, 17. I think it was 17. I had the biggest smile on my face. I walked in like skipping. We're not going to get in trouble. We're not going to get. I was fucking fired up because it was my first time going into a dispensary, not buying it from a plug, not growing it myself, whatever. It was exciting. And the first time when I got my med card here in Illinois, and I went to a dispensary here in Illinois for the first time, I was excited because I was able to buy legal weed, not knowing like all about the growers here and the cultivators and how many. I was just excited, and that's what it is. People are excited, but 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, when you get a little educated, you figure it out pretty quick, and you wind up either finding people that can give you the best weed, the best genetics, and you wind up leaving the dispensary life. You know, especially if you're in Michigan, you get a caregiver. Oh, that's good news right there.
I was like that even more recently. The first time I went to a dispensary was like 2 years ago because I was getting married in Vegas. And I wasn't going to fly. I was like, okay, every other time I'll fly with my weed. I just put my med card on it and like, okay, if you want to be dicks, I guess we're going to figure this out that way. But I wasn't going to risk it with getting married. I said, I'm going to get some weed down here in Vegas. And I was even that way. I was asked for their best weed. I thought I got their best joint, pre-roll, some edibles. And the edibles were pretty good. But, man, I just got headaches. They gave me headaches. I ended up giving most of the weed away. And then I went back and got more edibles, and I survived off that. So, yeah, it's definitely something that, like, nice picture, the packaging, everything. Like it definitely gives you that smile.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. So, all right. So, Big Earl, man, this is your show, man. Ask him. Let's talk about some genetics.
Yeah. So, you've been in this forever, Terp. That's what you've been talking. And the past, the present, the future with some of these genetics, what do you see changing the most in the genetics and from like the past to now? And what do you think is going to change like going into the future? Where are you seeing this go?
What we're seeing happening is natural selection at its best. Because weed isn't growing naturally. It's not growing in the woods. It's the sexiest plant is going to be the one that makes it to the next generation. Now, that's changed over time. The thing that we saw through most of the 70s and 80s was people just smoked what the fuck ever came to them. They didn't really, it wasn't really I'm going to get this or I'm going to get that. Through the 80s and late 80s and 90s, we started to see home breeders, small-time breeders, people starting to pick the best plant, put the best two plants together. And over years, that became the new gene pool. Whether it's high THC plants, which was the thing for a while, or now what we're seeing more is more boutique, terpene-driven, flavor-driven profiles.
It's still the thing in Illinois. All they look for is high
THC. It's still the thing in 80% of the country. And like one thing I will say, Weedman, one thing that you said is there's a timetable, right? So after everybody's had access, the cream starts to rise to the top. And you start to have more access to better stuff. People start to realize we can't just give our weed away. We have to finally market ourselves. We have to do well with what we're doing with the pick flavors that matter. We have to have strains that people care about. Yeah. That's what's changing now. That's what's going to change for the next 10 years. If we kind of watch, most of the biggest strains are maybe hot for a year. Maybe they're hot for 2, but there's not a ton of strains that really have staying power 10 years. There's maybe a handful that are still going around now that people were smoking even just in the 2010s.
I miss a good Northern Lights.
So as we keep going forward, that's just going to keep happening. The cream is going to rise to the top and everything else will be forgotten. And that sucks. In that sometimes your favorite strain from when you were in high school isn't around anymore. And that happens a lot to all of us. But the reality is those flavors are still out there somewhere. If you pop enough seeds or you run enough genetics, you can find most every profile that we've ever had still out there somewhere. It might not be called Blueberry Haze like it was in 1994 when the weed guy just gave you weed, but you know, the truth is, it's that flavor, whatever that flavor is still out there somewhere.
It's so true.
Do you think our consumption is going to go more and more towards that, like rosin, edible, stuff like that, and away from flowers? Since all these big gardens and all this overages of cannabis, it's where our weeds not super good, but they can make maybe some better edibles or extract some terpenes and enhance some things in different ways that way.
What it really comes down to is quality control, whether that be in your IPM, whether that be in quality control of percentage in edibles, whether that be that your hash lab is absolutely sterile in between washes or extractions, whatever you're making. That's what matters. And that's what Colorado saw kind of after 2015, 2016, was that what they started with, they didn't know what they didn't know. And they didn't know everybody in the state was using Eagle 20. They didn't know that everybody in the state was using mallet. Neither one of those are things.
Hold on. What's Eagle? You're newbie.
I'm sorry.
No.
Eagle 20 is a systemic fungicide that they essentially use on golf courses.
Oh,
and it does kill powdery mildew like that. It'll kill it for the next six months, maybe.
Wow.
But it also turns to cyanide, a form of cyanide when you smoke it.
Great.
So it's terrible. Mallet essentially is a pesticide that you use to control fungus, spider mites, most of your mites. Terrible stuff to smoke. And there were commercial grows, spraying it on late stage flowering plants without a hint of irony.
Could that be a reason why so many people are getting sick? And I did a couple of articles and did some investigating a while back ago on why people were throwing up so much from smoking weed, and they were blaming it on cannabis itself. I said, and I found out some information. Some of it was neem oil. They were overusing neem oil, saying there was, they say it's organic, but it's still not, it still gets in the weed and you're smoking it, making people sick. But is this other reasons why people are getting sick because of the chemicals that are being put in it?
Let me ask you that question just a little bit differently, right?
Sounds good.
So for 30 years, 40 years in America, people smoked weed and it helped your stomach relax.
Yeah.
And we never really had a problem.
No.
It was never really a thing. You never heard before 15 years ago that somebody was vomiting too much because they smoked too much weed.
Nope.
All of a sudden, commercial grows explode. Most of these grows for a long time don't have regulations about pesticides, fungicides, things like that are openly used in a new state that doesn't have regulations. And none of the studies that I've seen about cannabis hypermesis syndrome, which is what you're talking about, have tested the product that made them sick.
Oh.
And that's the problem that I've seen, is that until you can do that and say that all I smoked was organic flower that was grown without pesticides, without fungicides, and without anything that was toxic or nasty, then it's tough to really say what's really happening. It didn't happen for 40 years in this country.
100%.
And then all of a sudden, as commercial grows explode, states where they have legal large grows, this happens. I don't know. Like I said, until I see enough testing of the flower and I see that it contains absolutely no pesticides, no fungicides, then I can't really make a diagnosis. Like I'm not a doctor, but it is odd that we didn't have this problem for 40 years of smoking weed.
Forever. Yeah. For as long as until it got to
the whole thing was commercial. You give it to people that have cancer because they have issues with not being able to keep food down, and they smoke, helps your gastrointestinal, you're able to eat.
Yep.
It's always been a calming your stomach type of thing.
Huge.
What parts of the industry do you like? What do you dig about it? You see anything going in a good way on the legal side with anything? Maybe not bigger, but any of the licensing or anything?
I mean, there are definitely hash brands that I love out of Colorado. Laser Cat, 710 Labs, Oleo, those guys all do amazing extracts.
I've got some oil well. Pretty good.
All awesome.
Pretty
But
good,
the
man.
reality is, it all comes down to how long those regulations have been in effect. As far as being able to be a small grower, and I want to get into the legal industry, states that I've heard a lot of really good things about are like Maine. People are saying like they have a really kind of low threshold for being able to buy in and start a new grow and go legal and take that to a larger commercial level. Whereas states like California, even Nevada, Colorado, if you don't have 10 million in the bank, you're probably not getting into the conversation.
Yeah, try Chicago, try Florida. Illinois is like that too. Florida, if you don't have $50 million in Florida, you ain't getting in. So Illinois here, just not just to buy the license, but everything is
just to have the conversation, really.
Yeah, the conversation. I mean, you're paying people, your lawyers, just to get you into the door.
Yeah,
that's could be 50, 60, 100 grand just for that. And then on top of that, you're talking licensings, you're talking building permits. I mean, there's so much. You're talking they're talking about the new craft grows here in Illinois. 5,000 to 14,000 square feet will be the max, and you're talking 10 mil. You're talking 10 mil. That's just for the grow. That's for the build out.
I haven't spoken to anybody that's dealt with the Illinois system that has anything positive to say about it.
No. Yeah, it took them 2 years to get those 191 licenses out. So when it was supposed to be in 2020, so it's now, and they're still not open. The first 4 are opening up in the next couple of months. So, anyway, we're all about you. Forget about Illinois. The only thing good about Illinois is they allow home grow 5 plants, and that makes me happy.
It makes it what that does for you guys. And here's what you don't realize, right? And this is what I tell people. Is it gets the cops not giving a shit. A five lighter is not a big deal to them anymore.
Nope.
Because now they have bigger problems and they need to deal with licensing those grows and they need to deal with policing those grows. So your little 4 lighter is not that big a deal to them, especially if you're running LEDs. I'm just saying.
If you grow in Illinois now without a med card, it's only a $250 fine.
I'm just saying.
They don't give a fuck.
If you need some seeds, hit me up. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. Oh, I got you. We're friends now. So go ahead, Big Earl. Sorry about that.
No. Hey, let's get back on. So let's get back on the genetics part. Maybe let's talk about a male, right?
Okay.
Let's jump into what are you looking for when looking at a male? Do you run it through flower? Can you tell anything in veg?
Yeah, for sure. Normally I'm not running them on a first go. Like normally I want to be able to smell them across the room. It's one of those, you had me at hello. I knew when I walked in, you were the one. When you see him, usually it gets you around the nose. You kind of, and that's where it starts for me. I mean, I know that's not the end of the conversation, but that's where it starts for me. How does he smell? How do his crosses put out resin? Does that resin wash well? Because that's the market. That's where everything's going. And if it washes well, it's going to smoke well. It might not go the other way. Just because it smokes great, it's not going to make great hash. There's no guarantees.
Wow, that's interesting. I never knew that.
Guaranteed. If it makes great hash, it's gonna smoke well because it's gonna be covered in trichomes, and those trichomes are just gonna get everywhere. Yeah. If it's a great hash strain, it's gonna smoke. So if you kind of go backwards from that, and you kind of try to go for more terp strains, terpy strains, resin strains, hash strains, and then things that really put out flavors that are unique. So, I'm not trying to chase what anybody else is doing. I mean, I kind of have blinders on. I look for what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to find what's going to be unique, what's going to be different, what's going to taste like, wow, 40 years in, I've never tasted that. Yeah. And so, of stuff that I'm working with, that starts kind of with the pineapple sorbet stuff, which is not my strain, but is a strain that I've worked with heavy the last 4 or 5 years. It's probably the most unique flavor that I've ever tried. And I say that 40 years of trying seeds, I've popped tens of thousands of seeds. and it's probably one that I can't tell you that it tastes like this or it smells like that. It's unique. It's got a heavy sour pineapple incense thing.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
But it's got this thing that reminds me of that one weed from back in the day. And that's the best way I can tell you. It's got kind of a old school, it does have an old school kind of tie back in. And I can't tell you there's anything else that I've ever had that's that complex. For me, and strains in general, if I'm picking strains, I'm looking for stuff that I can't describe with one or two words. So I'm not just looking for strain it's gas. I'm not just looking for strain that's just kind of smells like Golden Goat or Jack Harrer, like single note, real simple things. I'm kind of looking for strains that I can't describe to you what it really tastes like. And I can't exactly tell you. I'll do my best. But I want to hit it one more time so I can try and pick out what that thing was that I tasted.
Yeah. Have you ever paid attention to how late it shows sex and when flipped? Like how long it holds on to its, before you can really tell?
The short answer to that is I've always been kind of old school in the sense that like autoflowers, if it flowers early or if it flowers, starts throwing big flowers early on, I'm probably not going to keep it and work with it. It's not going to be a long-term, and so other than resin, things like terpene profile, the other things that I kind of look for are structure, really important. I don't want huge node spacing between plants. I want people to get as much flower for what they're growing, but, with as much resin as we can get. And that's kind of the balance constantly for me is, making stuff that is commercially viable in the sense that somebody wants to grow it. And it is worth your money and your time and your lights and your dirt and your newts and your time, but it's also something that really has an effect that's going to be worth, the same amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to take another hit while you guys keep on asking questions, Big Earl. I like it.
Yeah, sure.
I just get to chime in every once in a while.
I love it. It's so maybe off the mail a little bit. Talking back to just like influential people that maybe some people don't know about today, who that people today don't know about. Who do you think was one of the most influential people for genetics, of the past to get us to where we are today?
Yeah, then I got a second question to ask to add on to that.
So right now, it's kind of the same answer, but it's kind of a twofold thing, right? So it comes down to the people that actually move the gene pool forward a little bit, right? So we'll start with that as our metric. Early on, they were Vietnam veterans. They were people that came back from traveling in other parts of the world that brought these genetics to America and that grew them here, acclimated them here, and that, in whatever indoor or outdoor environment made them work for what was needed. The same thing is happening right now. Right now, we're seeing the largest explosion of genetics that we've ever seen because it's never been easier for you to go and get a tent, to go and get a light, to go and get some soil, to go and get some newts, whatever it takes, and grow your own weed. And it's even easier to use the males that you had and the females that you had and breed them together and make your own seeds. So really, to me, who moves the movement more than any person that you're going to see on Instagram, more than anybody you're going to see on TikTok, more than any celebrity or influencer, are the home growers who fucking grow their asses off and maybe nobody but their friends see their weed.
Yep.
And in their other closet, they got a little seed game going and they trade those seeds between other people. That's more important than anything else that the hype is going to tell you.
It's just like the home brewers, to where we see some of the greatest beer we've ever had today now. It started at the house. It started in the garage. It started in the basement, just like you're saying. Some of the best grows we're going to have maybe in the next 5, 10, 15 years are coming from the home growers in their house and the caregivers too.
Because that's where the passion is. That's where the passion is. That's where people are still passionate because they know that they're smoking it. So they don't spray something on it that's going to be nasty because they know they have to smoke it. And they don't do anything, you know, that would hurt somebody else because they know they're going to give it to their friends.
Yep.
But once it becomes a huge commercial situation, and not just shit on big grows, because everybody needs weed and sometimes tiny grows can't keep up. But the reality is that the care isn't always there. So the care that you or I put into a garden isn't going to be the same as the care as a company that's got $20 million on this crop and has to get it sold no matter what went wrong. And that's the reality of why a small grow will always be able to produce better weed than a huge commercial warehouse, because they care about the weed that they're growing and they know that they're going to smoke it. And they know that if something went bad wrong, they'd probably rather just toss it and try again. And I know that's not commercially viable, but that's what affects the weed. And that's what affects the end product for any of us, you know, is that care that goes into it of like, I know who's going to consume this, and it matters to me whether they get sick, whether they get, you know, something happens, whether they just consume bugs, you know, like that's the other thing that most people don't know. In the first little while of having legalization, most people don't realize that like there's all these things that are a problem with weed, bugs and pests and, you know, all these things that you don't really think about as somebody who just casually smokes weed. But as somebody who gets on the internet, grows their own weed and cares to learn, you've probably figured it out that there's a lot of things you don't want to smoke that aren't just terpenes, you know, like there's a lot of stuff that maybe isn't healthy for you to smoke. And that's what nobody really tells you.
Is that because what you're putting in it, like what's being put in it nutrient wise or chemical wise, or just to mass produce to get it in and get it out so they can turn and burn every 60 days? Eventually they're saying that they'll have flowering periods within 30 days. They'll be getting plants 45 days. They'll be getting plants out into the market, you know? So,
well, they also, they'll zap. They'll, I don't know the exact technologies, what they do, or if it's UV lights or what, but they'll take nasty bug weed and they'll run it through.
I think the term is remediation.
Yes,
remediation is
right.
the term.
Remediation is
remediation. Yes, exactly. So they can come out with whatever they want. It's just like remediation.
I don't want no remediation.
Yeah. I don't want none of
but
that.
It passed tests, bro. It passed tests. We're good.
Yeah. Oh fuck. Remediation.
Yeah.
So to add on to that question, who was somebody you admire that you worked with, like in the past, or somebody you've maybe like did a cross with, or somebody that you know, adding on to like the old school OGs, but somebody that you might have in this time period that you respect enough to say, hey, I worked with this guy, or gal or person. I had a good experience. Yeah,
absolutely.
I want to hear about a good experience.
If you're not following Red Scare Seed Company, you're sleeping. Good people. I've done work with Nathan for a while. Good people that deserve a good look. Just once again, cares about the seeds they produce, cares about the flavors they produce, that it's not just, I'm just growing weed because I got, you know, seeds because I got nothing to do. I mean, breeders that really care about what they're doing. As much as I've used other breeders' work, a lot of the breeders that I have a lot of respect for are smaller breeders, people that maybe, you know, everybody out there hasn't heard of. At one point we had a list going. I've worked with Seattle Chronic, good people, really good people. You gave me Red Goat, good people, really good people. To be honest, if I'm being brutally honest, this is the first time anybody's ever seen me on the internet. I'm a hermit. I live in a little hole. Nobody knows what I do, where I move, and I'm happy with that.
That's cool.
And there's a few breeders out there that I've kind of interacted with on the online space that I have, you know, respect for how they've carried themselves amongst everybody else. But you're probably not going to see them at a cannabis cup You're probably not. I mean, most of them aren't people that are out hustling genetics to people in person at cup events. And that's the real thing, is that a lot of what people see is the biggest names out there because they can afford or have the time to go do 5 cannabis cups in a quarter, 6 cannabis cups in a quarter. And once again, that's another one of those, if that's what your thing is and that's what you love to do, then I can't hate on it. It's moved the industry in its own way. But to be honest, if you're not one of those people that wants to go out there and do the traveling carnival, right, which is pretty much what it is. I mean, I saw it on Fish Lot in the 90s. It was the same, everybody shows up, everybody pops a tent, everybody sells what they got, how much you give me for it. And if that's not really your thing, which a lot of breeders have lives, a lot of breeders have families, a lot of people do a lot of other things other than the forward facing part of the world that has to look pretty and nice, and which is awesome. But a lot of people have other things to do, but to, go be part of the traveling circus.
Right.
And those small breeders who are just people in their own right, whether they're, big, whether they're small, are just people that love what they do. They love the seeds. They love the flavors. They love what they're doing. And not to shit on any other breeder. Like, that's one thing I won't do. And I don't love everybody in the business, but I won't shit on anybody individually. There's a lot of it out there. It's kind of shitty. And if you've done enough of it, you've seen it. I'm not telling anybody that's, that's out there. But know who you're buying seeds from. Look into them. Ask who they are. If you can't get in touch with them, that's a problem.
Right.
If you can't contact the person that is selling you hundreds of dollars worth of seeds, and you can't ask them, hey man, how long does this flower? How long can I, this pack didn't go well. What do I do? If you can't contact them, that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, especially if you're spending money with these people, a fair amount of your hard-earned money, grow money, life money, whatever money. So,
average packs nowadays are $75 to $150
right.
for 10 seeds, regs,
right. Right.
So it's a lot of money for some people. Most
of the time, depending on who you shop with, you have a problem with those seeds. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, it's not really like but it's kind of, sorry, you messed up.
Right.
You know how many times it's happened to me? This is just one of those where new grower, first time, pack of seeds I've sold 12,000 times. Hits me up and, man, I didn't get a germ. Not one. I might coach them. I might say, hey, look, I don't know how you germinated these, but let's try this next time. Right. But I'm sending you another pack.
That's dope. Really nice. That's cool.
Least I could do. I don't care whether it was your fault. I don't care whether it was my fault. It could very well be they sat in a hot mailbox. It's nobody's fault.
Right.
But the reality is, if you're taking somebody's money for something, you should at the very least provide what you've taken money for. And that matters. And at least being able to contact the person and say, didn't go my way, any recourse? That's the difference between a breeder who cares about what they're doing and a breeder who's just selling people seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah, you stand behind your brand. Got it. Right?
Yeah. I tell people all the time, when they ask about strains, it's more about the breeder than it is the strain, really, because the selection that person makes, how much they put into it and they care about it, is way more than some name that they might have gotten, some gene pool that they might have gotten from somebody else.
All the rest is just marketing.
Yeah.
All of what you just said, the strain names and all of that is just marketing. And that's all it is how well it's being sold. How much can you spend to market your strain to make sure more eyes see it? And that's, at the end of the day, the best strains will continue on to the next generation. The worst strains will not make it.
Yeah.
The cannabis lottery.
Yeah. When people holler at you about the seeds, what are you finding is their biggest mistakes, like when they're hunting through your seeds and stuff?
There's a common misconception that all that needs to be done is throw the seeds in some dirt or throw the seeds into whatever medium that you're growing in. A more universal approach is a 48-hour soak. 24-hour. What I do personally, and what I usually recommend somebody who calls and says, I didn't get great germination out of this strain. No problem. New pack is on the way. You tell me what your order number, what new pack's on the way. That's all handled. Next time, if you don't mind, put them in some water. Give them 24 hours. After 24 hours, like a little kid, go and poke them all so they all sink to the bottom.
Yep.
Give them 24 more hours. By that point, if they're not out of the shell, go ahead and throw them in a damp paper towel, not dripping wet, but just damp all the way in a plastic bag. If they've already sprouted, put them in a cube, put them in your soil. They're probably going to make it no problem, whatever. That doesn't mean the seed is bad, right? It usually means that they need to get more water through the hull of the seed. And, just a little bit more of a soak is usually the biggest mistake most people make with new seeds.
Sure.
Or the notion that I need to use Miracle Grow.
Yeah. Yeah. What
No Miracle Grow, guys. No Miracle Grow. Please find a forum. If you're even thinking about the Miracle Grow, the bag with the Miracle Grow on the bag, just find a forum. Please go out now, find Instagram, find a forum, go find somewhere where people talk about weed and type that into the search engine.
They'll get eaten up.
There'll
be some nice people. There'll be some nice people. I've been on some of those forums where someone posts, should I use this? There's nice people and be like, fuck no, please don't. This is and give suggestions. And then there's just idiots that just beat people up. And they're just not fair to the newbie grower that's trying to learn. That's trying to create his own medicine, her own medicine, their own medicine. You gotta help people, man. This is what it's about. From
a new grower perspective. We've never had this kind of access. You've never been able to go on Amazon and buy a tent and buy a light and buy your nutrients and have it all shipped to your house. And most people, especially like I said, people kind of a generation above me, they just know to go to Lowe's. They got all the garden necessities and they got Miracle Grow.
Right.
But I mean, you could get the cheapest thing that you can get on Amazon that's even semi-organic or even pure salt is probably going to be better than Miracle Grow. And it's just one of those mistakes. And I had a debate with somebody recently about why Miracle Grow is so terrible. And it's not just because it's Miracle Grow. It's generally because it's way more nitrogen than you ever need to grow any plant ever. And normally you would sprinkle it into a garden bed of, vegetables or maybe flowers. Yeah. Not vegetables. Don't eat that stuff either.
Don't.
Flowers. Yeah. I'm trying to think maybe it has a use somewhere.
Just
I don't know.
Bed of daisies. Just put some
don't
Miracle Grow and watch those daisies pop up.
Don't consume it. Don't consume it.
Is there something you're seeing other breeders or other people making seeds doing? That's like you want to be like, hey, bro, what are you doing this for? Why are you doing it this way? What's that one thing that gets you boiling on that and on other people making seeds right now?
I feel like you want me to be slightly controversial on that one.
What's the one thing that you already said?
I'm gonna throw a hot rock out there.
Nice.
I like it.
Fems and autos get on my nerves.
I like it a lot.
Fems and autos get on my nerves because to me it's lazy growing. Okay. Right? You don't care about getting the best strain.
Can I interrupt real quick before you go forward on that? With the Fems, not auto. I don't use autos, and Big Earl knows that. I have not used an auto. I know people that do like it. I have to ask a question about Fems. And the only reason why I'm going to ask this is because people spend a lot of money and they're a newbie grower and they don't understand the difference between a male and a female yet. And they're upset and it burns them from growing because they don't know what they're doing. So someone who's a newbie grower or somebody that comes to me and asks me, I'm like, listen, I would start because you're spending $100 on a pack of seeds and you don't know what you're doing. If you want to start with a feminized seed first and then move into regs later once you get experience, because it keeps their zen going with growing. If they
No, I got
that's
it.
the only reason why I suggest feminized seeds to people, and people have heard me talk about it on the show. So I want to make sure that
I
you
want to
and I
be
are on the
real
same
clear.
page.
I'm not shitting on anybody. I'm not shitting on anybody that grows feminized seed. I understand the need. I get why people would do it.
Okay, perfect.
Here's how I look at it. We live in a Google world.
Yep.
You can go with the touch of a button and you can Google what boy plants look like and what girl plants look like.
100%.
In veg, the decent scope, I've never had a male get through. Right? Never.
Yep.
Never had a male get through. In veg, you're going to have better access to strains and to flavors if you can get to that point. And it's something that every new grower goes, I need the easiest. I need what's going to get me to point A to point B. But I kind of look at it like buying Miracle Grow. It's that first step that new growers take, and then you go, now I kind of get it, right? You get into midway into week 3 of that first grow. 4, you've invested all your time, your money, your lights. And you start seeing a whole nodule of male bits on your plant. And then you go, I know this shit's going to have seeds in it. Nobody's going to buy this shit. Now, I'm not saying that's everything. And I'm not saying that's a universal thing.
I feel you.
But what I'm saying is that maybe the next guy doesn't know those plants aren't the best to use in a breeding program. And now that's gotten into the gene pool a little heavier than it has already. And that happens a lot too, because I'm a genetics guy now. I think two-sided because I've grown my whole life. And my whole life has been, I got to get big, beautiful flowers and they got to have no seeds in them. And they got to have tons of resin so that that resin's going to make great hash. But now I think like a genetics person and I go, those aren't really the best genetics for everybody to be sharing. As long as they are in your tent, that's not a problem.
Right.
But then the one person that wants to go, man, I could make some seeds for my friend, or I found the seed in this weed. That's what really, let's just say what it is, right? All of your favorite strains, OG Kush, Gorilla Glue, all of the chems, it was because people were fucking with feminized seeds. They got pollen from a pollen donor that was probably not a male, that created seeds that ended up going out and becoming everybody's favorite strains. And now we have a massive hermaphrodite problem in the gene pool that nobody wants to openly talk about. and nobody really wants to address the elephant in the room. Where does that come from? Maybe it comes from the fact that all of your favorite strains come from unnatural parentage. And they're not from a male-female union, which means now a percentage of them are going to have problems. Guaranteed. Now, what that percentage is depends on how much of the gene pool you get from each A and B, and what we're getting into a whole different thing. Your favorite strains weren't created by a breeder. They were created by a guy in his closet who had a plant that got a little wonky, but it still produced really good weed. And that's why we still smoke it today, is because it was really good weed.
Yep.
But it's not genetically sound. It's not where you would start a breeding program, but we have. I mean, that's the basis for our modern genetics that we're discussing now. Everything that's going forward was created with your OG Kushes and your chems and your Gorilla Glues. And that's a problem that we have to talk about.
Yeah. I love that because I've definitely noticed, excuse me, seeds the last maybe 3 to 4 years that I've purchased. I've had way higher herm rates than seeds I've purchased before that. And even more so than that, seeds I've purchased that were real old, if I can get them to germinate, are like the sturdiest. They might not have like the most wild everything else that we're looking for, but they're like the sturdiest, hardiest plants that I have in my garden. So that makes a ton of sense. Like I knew a little bit of the lineage. I knew the GG4 came from a herm. I knew some of that other stuff, but yeah, I love that, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, man. Thank you for that. And I get it. I talk to people all the time just because they get frustrated. I've grown so many regs since I started regrowing again, but I got frustrated a couple times. I'm like, I'm going to buy some feminized seeds just to get a quick little grow. I can get some flower real quick. And I know it's the lazy way to grow. And Big Earl has told me that too to my face. So
let me give you another anecdote, right? If you're going to grow fems and still end up with seeded weed, you might as well just grow regs and figure out what a male looks like. And generally you're going to have a lot less problems. Now, I tell people, don't buy strains based on a picture on the internet. Don't buy strains based on the hype name that you heard. Learn what the strains that you're into taste like. What do those flavor profiles taste like? What are those things that you're tasting when you're smoking? And then you go, okay, I like linalool. I like very flowery type strains. That's what my thing is. Then you figure out other strains that are similar. You go out and figure out, there's tons of this information that's out there. Breeders like me, if you ever ask, I could point you in a direction of a great sommelier taste and flavor. What do you need? Right. And that's generally how I try to pair people with strains is like, what is your taste? What kind of strains do you like? If you don't know, then it's easier for me. I can tell you what you like. But if you do, and you're like, man, I like gassy strains. I like, kind of like you said, I like chem strains. I like berry strains. Then it's a lot easier to put people with something they're going to love.
One of my faves. Old school blueberry, man, was still one of my faves, man. Back in 2001, the first time I got to try blueberry, I was in another world. I'm like, what is this? Where can I get pounds of this?
The problem with going to you, Terp, and talking to you about all your flavors and what I need and want is that I always end up buying the whole freaking line. You're like, well, I got the deal online. I'm like, oh shit. I'm not complaining. I love it. I'm just.
This is the one time I can't see what your problem was. I really don't understand. I don't have a solution for it, and I really don't know what to tell you. The struggle is real.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
I love it.
That's true.
So, I remember my third grow. Big Earl and I became friends 4 or 5 years ago, and became my coach. Once I was on my second grow, and I was having some struggles, and didn't know what to look for in a male and a female, and he sent me some pics and stuff like that. It became real quick, real easy. Once you know where to find and what to look for, you could pretty much know. And I got people now asking me, and I just send them pictures. Go right on the internet, send them a picture. This is a male, this is a female. Most people don't even know. Most people know that they don't even realize that plants are dioecious, that cannabis plants are dioecious. You need a male and a female to.
It's so easy to pick the male out before you get pollen. Like
right.
I actually have an easier time picking a female out than I do a male.
Right.
Yeah.
But what you said too is kind of the progression everybody goes through, right? Yep. You just start as a smoker and you're like, whatever floats by my way, I'm going to smoke it. I like weed. You've been doing that for long enough. You realize not all weed is created equal.
No.
So then you get into a point where you go, oh, there's different flavors?
Yeah.
Once you have access, that changes a lot of things too, because now you have access to some citrus weed and some berry weed and some gassy weed. And, you can finally look and figure out what you like. And that kind of comes with access. That comes with experience. It happens to all of us. But we do realize there's better stuff out there. And then it becomes a pursuit that some of us maybe take a little too seriously. Some of us pursue as a lifelong desire to find the best, whatever that means to you or to me, and that becomes your thing. And I'm going to find whatever I've never seen, and I'm going to find what's better than what I've had.
What's your holy grail?
Man, I'm going to give you a terrible answer to that question. Whatever I'm popping next.
Oh, that's not a terrible answer. That's a
because I'm not real. Like I said, I have real bad ADD with strains. So like I'll smoke something for a day or two, and then I'm like, I got to find something else. I love this, and I want this to be around. I want this to be a thing. But I also got to find something else.
Yeah.
And that's where it's more of the grower in me that still has that mentality of I don't have access to seeds. And I'm going to have to get all my seeds from generally stuff that I produce or that I can scrounge around. And I need to make the best flavors that I can because I don't really want to have to smoke everybody else's weed.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we all get into breeding seeds is we all go, what else is out there? Like,
Sure.
I've seen a lot, but you don't really see a lot until you pop seeds. And until you get into, I probably went through 450 seeds this year. Then you can really say, like, as just a grower, not somebody who's even breeding, you can finally say, like, this is the dank. Like, this is the stuff that this is the stuff.
That dream.
But most people, like I said, most people know what they get, what floats by, what do they see? You know, it's not until you become that discerning customer, smoker, that you finally go, I've seen the best, and now I want to see what else there is. And that's why I tell people, don't let the term pollen chucker get to you. If you have a space, go find your 2 favorite strains and make them do what they do and make your own seeds.
Yeah.
And I say this as a breeder. I say this as somebody that you would think that hurts my bottom line.
Yeah.
Nah, because it makes the gene pool bigger. It now means that those amazing strains, whatever they were that meant something to you, might continue to the next generation. So you're going to be able to see them a couple years from now. Seed lasts for a long time. That's the difference. Like, having a cut that you love is awesome, but I'm always one of those people that I need to find what's coming next. I need to see what else is out there. Like we said before we started, I just got a whole thing of South African pineapple sorbet crosses. Like, it never ends. It just never, there's that pursuit of I always have to find what else is out there. You know, I'm not happy to just, this is what it looks like. This is what weed looks like. To me, it's always, we still haven't seen the best.
Is it still exciting for you?
Fuck yeah, every day.
I love it.
Yeah, every day. And that's the funny thing, man, is that at a certain point, you've seen flower. And flower is beautiful and it's impressive and it's great. And I'm a hash fanatic. So for me, I love to see beautiful hash and the end product and all of that. That shows the true flavor potential of a strain of weed. It's the true essence of the strain.
I love hash.
But to me, the most amazing thing is to make something that's never been made before, that doesn't exist. Even if it's maybe to some people not as interesting, it's amazing that pushes the entire pool forward. And we get another chance to see in the next generation of what's best, what people like and what makes it through to the next round.
Yeah. Something that really helped me understand some of the like complexities and expressions and even in like genetics and lineage and everything was when I could get multiple generations into the breeding projects, and I could recognize like, hey, this has an aftertone of the grandmother or the grandfather, or I could recognize where certain things were coming from and what I knew what plant I was looking for before I ever planted the seed. Because okay, this is what I'm looking for. I might not know, like, because I'm not hunting 1,000 or 100 seeds of anything. I might not know the percent, but I'm saying this is what I'm looking for here. That really like sparked or fueled the passion for me to continue with all the breeding. Really.
If I could say one thing, right? Any person that can make seeds should make seeds. Right? Because for you, it takes those 2 strains, whatever they are, that mean something to you. You wouldn't have picked them.
Yeah.
And you carry that on to the next thing, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have to run 1,000 seeds to make a seed that's worth going to the next stage with. You also don't have to inbreed 15 generations of filial generations of brothers and sisters. You don't have to do that to make a seed that's worth growing in people's gardens. The reality is, stable today didn't mean the same thing as stable 20 years ago meant. 20 years ago, stable meant there weren't a lot of phenotypes. And so you saw a lot of people taking things into the F4, F5 generation and a little bit further, which is, it's good if you want plants that all look alike. Today, that's not what the modern grower asks me for. They don't ask me for 10 seeds that are all identical. It's just really not what people ask me for. People want something unique, and they want something that's amazing. They want something that makes everything else they've smoked up until now look like garbage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the reality is, inbreeding is great. Filial inbreeding, a boy and a girl from the same line constantly inbreed to each other. It's great to weed out small problems. It's great to unify all of your plants to look and breed similarly. It also causes problems. We only have to look at dog breeding to realize that over inbreeding just for looks or for one particular trait isn't the answer. I don't want to shit on anybody, but there's a strain that's called blueberry that's in so many modern hybrids.
It's true.
It's one of the most hermaphroditic strains on the planet. It's got more problems than anything I've ever seen. Its breeder wrote a book on breeding. It's been inbred. It's not perfect. There's just a lot of misconceptions with people when buying seeds that if it's an F6 or an F7 or an F8, that's the best of what there is. There's nothing better than that, and that's not really the case.
It's funny that you brought it. It's funny that you brought a strain up that I talked about a little bit ago when I smoked it the first time in 2001.
I'm going to be real honest with you.
No, it's
like
crazy.
I said,
because
I'm from the deep south. I remember the blueberry yum yum.
No, I remember that.
I smoked the blueberry yum yum. Like there was blueberry weed 2000, 2001 all over the country. Yeah. It really was.
I wasn't living in Florida anymore. I was living in Illinois, and at that time,
it was all over the deep south.
That was the best shit. That was the best shit that was around at that time. And then when you got some Northern Lights and some White Widow too, that 2000 to 2002, those were the strains that people were. And then I knew some breeders that were doing some stuff, and they were crossing blueberry with white rhino, with rhino, and calling it rhino berry. And that was so that was my early stages of learning what people were crossing back then. But interesting, you brought up blueberry, man. That's fucking crazy.
Which, don't be wrong, blueberry's a great strain. I've had many a good blueberry, but it brings up the point, man, that there's certain things that were really important years back that aren't important today. And the modern grower, the modern consumer, and the people who are actually growing weed because they care about what they're doing now care about the flavor more than ever. That's what is going to guide those people that are, not just in the newly legal state that are just in awe that they've had weed, but people that are going to kind of, I want to know what else is out there. And that's where people start to ask those questions of what flavors are out there. And that's what I think what we're all asking right now, right? Like I said, right this minute, we're seeing the largest explosion of genetics that we've ever seen in history.
Right.
There's more people now making seeds and more people now growing cannabis than ever before in history. That's only going to get, as things become more accepted and more legal and more, in every part of the world, that's not going to change. And that means the gene pool is going to get bigger, and we're all going to have more things to select from for the next generation. And the big thing that we're seeing now, after the THC wars have kind of subsided and everybody's seeing a 35% THC strain now, it's really becoming about flavors and ancillary cannabinoids, right? If you still consume flower, like that's really what it is about. You're trying to find the flavors that you are particularly attracted to, as well as,
the next new cannabinoid.
The next new cannabinoid. You're absolutely
one?
right. You're
What's
absolutely
the
right.
next new one? That's what
I don't
that's
even
what
know that
I'm-
it's a new one as one we're finally going to realize was there the whole time.
True. But everyone right now is talking about CBG and THCV and all those new ones that they're doing, and they're doing some genetically modified shit to some of them now. And you see the HHC, and you see the Delta 10, the Delta 8, the Delta. You're gonna see them all. You're gonna see those 120 that they're talking about haven't been discovered yet. But the thing is, though, what's the next one that's going to blow people's minds? Someone's going to discover it. And it's going to be a home grower. It's going to be someone who's like, what the fuck is in this weed? It's going to be somebody's genetics, and all of a sudden they pop something, and there was a new cannabinoid that just came out, and it's going to blow up, and it's going to be the next revelation. It's going to cure cancer. This one's going to cure cancer, 100%. I agree with you 100%. It's all about the cannabinoid revolution right now for the corporate grows, so they can sell it, market it, plant it, pop it, and then you have the breeders trying to get you the best flavor profile of cannabis that you've never experienced before. That's what I'm seeing. I'm not saying everybody's doing that, but that's what I'm seeing for the last 2 years. That's all I've been reading about and all I've been hearing about. Who's going to discover the next new cannabinoid, or what cannabinoid's doing this, and let's market the fuck out of it. Let's bleed it dry. Let's fucking make synthetic cannabinoids like fucking crazy. And then let's tell everybody these terpenes do this, and this. But now it's not coming from the plant. It's coming from, because not everything is stable in a cannabis plant. So they're trying to get you to believe that we're buying terpenes from flowers and lemons.
Right.
So they're not giving you the
non-natural, non-cannabis derived. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Right.
So you kind of bring up something else. You touched on something that I got to say something about while I'm here.
Please.
It's something that I'm passionate about, very passionate about. It's essentially open source genetics, right? So what we've seen is that the way that these massive companies are going to be able to exploit the strains that are out there is they have to be able to prove that what they have is unique. People are always going to want weed that is grown from seeds. They're not going to want genetically modified weed, to be honest with you. Not to say that there's not going to be carts sold with THCV and THCA and THC Delta 12. That's going to happen. That's always going to exist. But the general smoker, the person that you're probably talking to right now, the person that has a grow or that cares about weed enough to find a podcast on the internet, is probably a little more discerning and says, you know what, man? I care about the plants that I'm growing. I care about what I put in my body. And to a certain degree, I want to control that, right? So what that means is that you shop with breeders that you know, and breeders that allow the work that they're purchasing to be used themselves. And by what I mean by that is they're not going to give you shit because you use their genetics to go make your own seeds. Open source genetics essentially means that when you purchase a pack of seeds, it doesn't really matter what pack that is, who sold it to you. You own the rights of how those seeds are used. You own the ability to grow them in your grow, to breed with them, to sell them to somebody else, to grow a warehouse full of cuts. If you want to make F2s and sell them to every person on the internet, you bought that right. And you should stick with growers that support that, because not everybody does.
100%. I've seen people bashing people on social media about that.
It's nasty.
Yeah, really nasty.
And you sold them. You sold them a seed. That isn't a promise that I'm going to go throw half of them away. I mean, and I guess that's the argument for your feminized seeds, to be honest with you. From a breeder's perspective, if you wanted to, just go release femmes.
Right.
You don't want people to breed with them. But the reality is, open source genetics means that when you buy a pack of seeds, they're yours. You can do with them whatever you want. You can use them how you please. You can grow them in your garden. And if you make seeds with them, you can do whatever you want with them because you paid for them. And there's no disclaimers on the pack that say you have to throw half of them in the garbage, or you can't use the males that you found, or, it's another one of those things that customer service doesn't really end at the moment you cash out. Like, there's a little bit of people are buying seeds because they want something that they can grow and that they can love and that they can share with their friends.
It's my zen. I've been saying it from day one when I picked up growing again. It's been my zen. And especially it was during COVID too, when everything was all fucked up, you know, and everybody was depressed. I would meditate in front of my plants and just look at them and admire them. And it kept me going, kept me doing something, especially when that lockdown was going on and no one was really working, you know. And I mean, if you needed something to do and something to love and something to be passionate about. And I remember, man, I was loving it, just sitting there every day, looking at my plants, researching, reading, what am I going to do better? What I need to do, talking to Big Earl all the time, you know, we're DMing each other and shit. But it was just a zen for me. And it was a relaxation time when I went to those plants, and they called me basically every, you know, multiple times a day. And I only had 2 or 3 plants in my small little tent, but it did for me during COVID, and still to this day, the enjoyment factor, just the love of the plant, and especially the end when you put it in those jars to cure, however way you cure your weed, and you get to open it up and smoke it, and you get to smell it, and you get to observe it, and then you get people to come over and they see the plant that you grew, and you give them a couple nugs to take home with them, and they're like texting you going, oh man, it was better than the last one you grew. You're getting good at this. I'm like, thanks, man. My thing is, I just want to grow good weed and people to enjoy it. I don't want to be the best. I don't want to, maybe one day I'll try to breed here and there. I just want to grow good, solid cannabis that people can enjoy. And I think that's what most home growers want.
Absolutely.
Probably I would say about 80% of them want to just grow, and they want to be able to trust the people they're buying their genetics from. Because that is the most, besides good lighting, genetics is the most important part. You need both. I mean, Big Earl told me this: you could throw a fucking seed on your balcony, it'll grow, you know. But if you want to grow good weed, you're going to have to get good lighting. You have to get good genetics. You're going to have to learn about soil. You're going to have to learn about nutrients. You're going to have to learn about humidity. And if you want to grow, if you just want to fucking throw a seed in the ground and let it grow, good, fine. That's fine. But if you want to grow good cannabis, talk to people, join a community, fucking just get out there and do it. I have TR Tech just grew his first fucking plant, fucked it all up, but he got 1.25 ounces out of it. Of weed. It's smokable. Our technician, first time.
Yeah.
Forgot to turn the fucking light on during germination. I mean, during fucking the first fucking couple of weeks of veg. The fucking plant was outside the tent looking for some light. But he did it. And I'm so proud of him. He grew 1.3 ounces of fucking weed. You can't.
Man, here's the thing. You learn more from the mistakes
than
you ever will from the ones that went perfectly. And what that means isn't necessarily that it's always going to be cheer after you learn a lesson, but what it means is you know where not to step next time. And you kind of mark that thing in your head and you go, okay, I made that mistake. I'm not going to make that mistake again. Yeah. And what you kind of said is super true. Anybody can grow weed, but not anybody can grow weed that somebody really wants to smoke. And that's the difference. And that's what we all strive for, is that thing that somebody else that you share it with loves it as much as you did.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, I love that. Yes.
You want to know that all of that time and effort and patience and love was worth it. But nobody ever sees the failures. And we usually don't talk about them, especially now in an Instagram world. But we all make them.
Oh, yeah.
We have all screwed up. Some of us have made big mistakes. And some of us have made real little mistakes. And some of us just got some weed to smoke. And some people lost a lot of money. But every mistake is a learning opportunity. And it's a chance to go, you know what, I'm going to do it better next time because I know where the mistakes were. And it's that fine tuning that makes good weed and great weed. Because you learn those little bitty things each round that make up that final success when you have that best weed you ever grew, you know? And it's not necessarily that everybody wants to grow the best shit on the planet and brag about it, but the reality is that everybody wants to smoke great weed. Yeah. And the better you grow, the better the weed. And the more mistakes you make, the better the weed eventually. As long as you're one of those people that can learn from those mistakes and say, I'm going to do better next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
totally.
what's the plant that got away? Big Earl really wants to know that one.
Yeah. What's the one that you wanted to breed with? You lost it for some reason. You ran it. You're like, this is the one. You have anything like that? You don't have around anymore.
Yeah, it's a funny story. It was also the same plant that I got mites twice from. So I'm a Myrcene guy. I'm a Kush guy. I've always been a big Kush guy. My wife's a big sativa fan, so we have a thing in the house, but it's always been Kush for me. I had a purple Kush cut that I got from a friend. I got mites. It was the best weed I ever grew. 2000 maybe? 2000, 2001,
Damn.
right? Lost it. Got it back. Got mites again. Still grew the best weed I ever grew in my life. Right before I left a grow that I had crossed it to another strain. But I had only gotten like 3 weeks in or so. Like it wasn't far enough to really make whole seeds. And to this day, like that round of crosses with the purple kush, anything purple kush, was the one that got away. And even today, like I've run some kind of purple kush crosses, and I've kind of gone on a holy quest, and I still haven't found her. And to be fair, it was strains like that and the deep chunk for me early on that started a love for heavy cushes, for heavy medicinal Myrcene heavy strains. Like I'm normally a pretty high energy guy, pretty high strung. So for me, having strains that could kind of even things out mattered. And I found that in the cushes that I loved and in the strains that meant a lot to me, what really the common thread was that they were Myrcene heavy. So I started going out and I started to breed strains in a direction that took me towards what I wanted but couldn't get back to, right?
Right.
So in a strange way, some of those strains, and I've gone back and worked with Deep Chunk a million times since then. That was another one of those strains at that same time in my life when I realized cushes, anything Kush, landrace indica, heavy indica. But the reason that we talk about those strains in that context is Myrcene. Myrcene's the heavy terpene kind of amongst all of those.
Mrs. Weedman and I love Kush strains. I don't buy them from the dispensary that much anymore because they're always dry. So I always try to find a home grow. It's got some Kush, and we love it. Especially does so well for our endocannabinoid system, man. It does our body good, especially at night when we're just chilling. She especially loves. We were just smoking some Kush mints a couple days ago, and
so there's the notion that Myrcene helps THC cross the blood-brain barrier. Generally, people that grow strains that I have that are high in Myrcene tend to be people that come back and go, that shit knocked me on my ass. I'm good. Unless you're just that smoker that was looking for that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So to me, once I found Banana Kush, like the first time I found Banana Kush, I almost just said, I'm done with everything else. All the rest of this is just, I'm good. And it's ever since, like I said, and the big thing, once again, this was kind of 2016 when terpene testing first kind of became a commonplace discussion topic. And we started to see terpene tests for more and more of our favorite strains. That was the guiding force on the strains that meant anything to me, was that they were heavy in Myrcene. And so I've always searched that out.
Can you have you been able to grow and breed a strain that just has like 80% myrcene in it and more of that terpene, that high end? I mean, I know it's tough, but have you found that niche to where you can grow a straight plant for the terpene you're looking for yet?
So here's the problem, man. Then we get into the same bottleneck that we got into with THC, right? Myrcene's awesome, but it's not the whole story.
True.
You really need a broad spectrum of terpenes and cannabinoids. Now, for what I like a little more Myrcene. But everything else that's in that soup, the more the merrier, in essence. So once again, I'm a 40-year smoker, 30-year smoker. I've been smoking for quite some time. I have tolerance issues.
Right.
And for me, the thing other than being able to smoke different strains as often as I can is to be able to have broad spectrum strains. So strains that have a decent amount of any given terpene, but as well as let's throw some CBG in there. Let's throw some THC. Like I said, I'm not necessarily as worried about being able to extract it and sell it pharmaceutically, because I think that's going to be a constant red herring over and over and over, that they're going to realize none of these things on their own really do a whole lot. I mean, THC in any of its forms, Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, Delta 12, whatever it is, they will get you high.
Right.
But there's a certain amount of, for me personally, every time I've ever had those in their purest form, they just give me headaches.
Right.
You know, it's not like I got really high and just enjoyed myself. For that, it's generally been strains that are more balanced, that have, you know, and that come from flower. I mean, that's the other thing, is so much of what you're seeing now that's on the open market is coming from CBD. And it's because of the glut in the CBD market, because hemp has been legal in so many states. There's warehouses full of CBD crystal. They didn't know what to do with all of it, even though it's the hottest thing on the market this Christmas and you can buy CBD in every Walgreens. The reality is that they have so much of it, they don't know what to do. So they found a loophole. And the loophole was that if they made ancillary cannabinoids like THC8 or Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, THCA, as long as it came from CBD, it's legal.
Right. That's the whole thing with the Delta 9 thing now, too, because it's coming from CBD. And now they're able, especially in Florida, you see it in every head shop now. Oh, we sell Delta 9. We sell Delta 9 because it's the CBD. It's coming from CBD, and it's that 0.3%, but they're able to jack it up a little bit higher. It's crazy because I've been talking to a lot of people about that, too. It's just nuts how the CBD, like you said, you can get all those different cannabinoids, but now they're just going straight balls to the wall with THC now. They're not in Delta 9. Yep. They don't even care.
Yeah, and that's why I get back to know what you're smoking.
Right.
Know what you're smoking. If you just get some carts from some friends, you're probably smoking some shit that you don't want to smoke. And it might get you high. It might get you high. But I don't think you really want to be smoking it long term.
No.
Didn't come from gorgeous flowers that were grown in somebody's home or even in a nice weed grow. Most of it's grown in fields where they don't care. They just water it. It's just product. You just got to understand, we got to make our money, you know, and nobody really cares in the end. Like, it's just going to go into a cart and you're going to buy it at a gas station and nobody really gives a fuck.
Right. Yeah. Gas station weed, just like gas station burrito.
Right. It's hot dog water. I'm sorry. Let's just call it what it is. It's hot dog water. It's just whatever was laying around, we threw it in the pot, and after that, we took that out and put some more in the pot, and then we took it out, and by the end of the day, it's just what it is. It's product.
Oh, shit.
But most people, once again, that are probably listening to your show are people that care about what they're putting into their body to a degree of, I'm going to look into how I grow. How was this grown? What do I smoke? I like to smoke weed and not just some whatever somebody gave me. And everything has its place. I'm not hating on any consumer. If I said anything negative, it's on the product or the way it was produced.
Right.
Which are often where the problems come in, because there's not quality control. Nobody really cares about what you're going to put, because they know you're going to buy it and they know you're going to smoke it and they know you don't know better.
Right. 100%. I agree with that 100%.
And all you need to do is just look, because the information is out there. It just how to grow better weed. I'm one of those people that I answer every DM that I get.
Sweet.
Like, if you hit me up and you say, man, I'm not even growing your strain, but I don't really know what I screwed up, I'm going to do my best. I'm not writing books.
I lead a lot of people to Big Earl.
Right. But the truth is, man, like, I try to answer every question that I can. I try to take them all seriously. And I try to go, you know what, man? I was a small grower once. I was somebody nobody had ever heard of. I was just a guy in my closet. and I needed help. And for me, it wasn't out there. Because when I started growing weed, you could get a book from a friend, or maybe you could get one shipped if you knew about the internet early on.
Right.
But a lot of it was trial and error for a lot of people. And I know what that was like. So when somebody hits me up, I take it all seriously, just like I would have wanted somebody to when I was coming up.
Yeah, man.
When I had a question and I didn't have anybody to go to, if I'd have had a resource, I would have gone and asked a stupid question. That's how you learn. The fact that you're willing to ask the questions and say, I don't know. I want to know. What can I know better? That's the thing that pushes a grower towards that next crop, towards that next best thing, towards that next amazing grow, is that it could always be a little better. You know that thing that you could change. And if not, let's try another strain and let's find whatever else is out there for us.
Yeah, I love it. That's it.
A lot of those gardens out there are one or two, bad or stupid questions away from being like immaculate gardens. They have a humidity off or something so small that they're just not catching or never were told about. And the one little change can change so much. We going to LEDs or changing anything can change so much. So I love it, man. I love it, man. That's the shit.
The best thing you can do as a grower is to pick a set of parameters, whatever it is, and stick with it for a few rounds, right? Pick a strain, pick a nutrient, pick a grow, pick a light, pick a tent, whatever it is, and run it a few rounds. Because if you constantly change variables every single grow, you're never going to get to a point where you know what's going wrong because you have no control.
There's no consistency in it.
Exactly.
You're not being consistent. You're just trying to throw shit at the wall and see if it sticks, and that doesn't work in any kind of grow, any kind of anything. Period. Even life. There's a life lessons for you right there. Learn how to grow. Be consistent. And if you can consistent and grow, you can be consistent in life. So there's a life lessons for you all. Hey, Terp, we got a couple questions for some listeners. I'm going to go first, and then Big Earl will ask his. So this is a friend of the show's. We call him Jay Cush, and he's got a question. Everyone knows what a good female looks like. What are some good male traits sought after for breeding?
We hit this a little bit, but we'll hit it again.
Hit it again.
Flavor, stink. Like, let's say you're doing your first round. You pop your first 10 seeds, 20 seeds, 30 seeds, whatever you have the space to pop, right? You're looking for your first male. You're looking for a male that stinks. That ain't the end of the story, but that's going to help you get through the next few steps. Then you take him and you find one that has a stature you like. What do you grow? If you're breeding for yourself, what do you like? For me, I don't like things that are 12 feet tall. I don't like 18-week sativas.
Yeah, me neither.
I just don't have the time for that.
Right.
There are people out there that love that, and they have the passion to grow that. And that's why everybody should take a stab at growing or at breeding, because everybody has a different love and a different passion, and all of these things are valid. All of these things are amazing. But for me, I try to find a male that's in a height that I like, with node spacing that I like. And then I hit them to females that I know. Things that I know. Ladies that I've been around with. Things that I know when I hit them, this is how they're going to look. This is what they're going to do. Then I get to see how big a problem, something like herms are. Something small like, how well do the seeds develop? That's something most people don't really think of, but as a breeder, having big, healthy, nice, fat seeds is an awesome thing, but that's not every strain. A lot of strains will produce little rice-size seeds, and they're still viable. They're not often as viable for long as bigger, fatter, healthier seeds a lot of times. And that is, depends on what your goal is. If your goal is just for you to make some seeds at home and to grow something that's awesome that you love, find two things that you love and breed them together. As far as a breeder like me, who I'm, at the end of the day, I want people to run my seeds. I'm growing seeds because it's a business that I run, but it's also my passion. So I'm looking for seeds that impress me. And that's really all I can do. I'm looking for, at the end of the day, if it wows me, it's going to wow 80% of the other people out there who haven't seen 1,000,001 strains. And that's really, I think that's any breeder right now. You're trying to put out there your interpretation of what the best weed you can put out there is. Doesn't really matter who you are. And I will say that for almost any breeder, though we're all doing it because we make money at what we do. For almost everybody, it's because I want to represent the best weed I can put out there. And for me, if it's something that I go, wow, like that's impressive. Like let me call somebody. Then that's worth working with. It's worth, with males or females. With males, it's a little tougher, and you kind of have to get your hands dirty and do the work and cross a couple strains, get in a couple generations, see what else is out there. But at the end of the day, man, males, you're looking for the same thing you look for in females.
Cool.
Height, stink, resin. Most people don't know males have resin. Males have trichomes on them. If they do,
I love them.
Breed them.
Make a tea out of them. It's great. When I get a male, I take everything out of that male and fucking, use it. The only thing I don't use is, well, I try to get some pollen over to Big Earl over here, but it didn't work out that way that one time.
You want to talk about the ultimate irony? I found out I'm deathly allergic to cannabis pollen.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
You're not the first one. I've heard it from a couple people.
Did you find out like a hard way? Like, you had to...
Here's what's funny, man. I never had allergy in my life. Never had any issues with seasonal pollen allergies. Never had an issue at all. Walked in my grow room, pollen shaking everywhere for years. Never had a problem. And then one day, I had a problem.
Adult allergies, they suck.
No, it'll shut me down 2-3 days at a time. Like, I can't be around male plants without
put the
a full respirator, eye, nose. Yeah, damn. That's the unspoken breeder's problem. You're probably not going to hear anybody else, but if you get in your grow and you're a breeder and you work in your grow around pollen, you've probably developed a problem with being around it, because it's nasty. And you got to think too, when you're outside in the spring and the trees, pollen count might be high, but it's not in your face.
Right.
It's not, there's tons of air outside that circulates everything. When you're dealing with male plants that are in your face, you're breathing so much pollen that it's just an irritant that would bother anybody. But man, yeah.
When I breed,
you got the last question?
Yeah. When I breed, I'm in a small tent and I reach in and I shake it real fast and I zip that bitch up. And then I spray my whole basement with water because my flowering room is about 6 feet away from my tents.
So do this. Put the male closer to the door. And then if you've got negative pressure in your tent, just opening it is going to push enough air to dust that pollen all in there. And you don't even have to get in it at that, for that week or 2 weeks that you really need him to be there. Yeah. So pollen.
Dude, it fucks you up.
My kryptonite.
Our last question is from Jay Cush. He was interested in, do you have certain methods that you like topping the plant, lollipopping the plant? Do you have certain methods that you'll do on every plant? Do you follow the genetics? Do you kind of watch the plant, or how would you top or lollipop a plant, or give that advice to a gardener?
And real quick, that's from Ari Jarvin, not Jay Cush. The last question was from Jay Cush. We're a bunch of stoners.
Oh, sorry.
So,
Ari Jarvin.
The short answer is, it depends on your space. Okay?
Sure.
If you got 20-foot warehouse ceilings, you don't really need to top, because you can run these giant, untrimmed, untopped bushes and grow big, huge colas.
Sure.
But if you're growing in a tent, you're growing in a 4x4, and you want to grow really modern hybrids, anything OG Kush, anything with a little bit of sativa in it, anything chem, you need to train, and you need to learn how to top, and you need to learn how to train plants. Trellis is usually your easy short option for a kind of mini sea of green. But yeah, 2 or 3 tops, lower prunes, complete strip, 4th node down, everything. And then it depends once again on your space. If you're training under that trellis, then you're going to have, a decent amount of space, and you're going to need maybe 2 or 3 toppings to get by, to make enough tops to fill it all out. But yeah, the problem that I see with the internet right now is everybody wants a short, quick answer to, like, not just this, but in general. And everything is so situational to your grow, to your parameters, and to how you're set up, that it's tough to answer questions sometimes with a simple answer, even though it seems like a simple question. And the reality is everybody's grow's different. Everybody's needs are different. And there's really no wrong answer unless you don't produce great weed in the end. If you produce great weed, then there's a million paths to get there, and none of them are wrong. There's as many different ways to grow weed as there are growers growing it. And that's, once again, going to exponentially get bigger and bigger and bigger. As long as you're growing good weed, you're doing it right.
That's it.
That's all you can do.
That's it.
Don't let anybody tell you they did it another way, and your way is that if you grew great weed, keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Remember how you did it too.
Remember how you did it, and do it exactly like that again, but a little bit better. Yeah. If not, you're like me. You're on that constant quest of what can I make a little bit better and a little bit better, and so the next time it's good, but we're talking about this stuff and not the last stuff I grew. Yeah. And I think that's, once again, that eternal grower, breeder, seed popper mentality of, I want to know what else is out there. What can I do better so that the next round is a little bit better than what I just did?
Yeah, 100%.
We appreciate you answering those 2 questions for our listeners, man. We really do. Wes, you got Big Earl, you got anything else?
No, dude, I had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I found myself quiet at times just listening. It was fantastic, man. It's crazy how much I agree with you on. I learned a lot, and I appreciate you, my dude.
Anytime, man. I always tell people I try to answer any question I get. So if you hit me up on Instagram, if you got a grow question, if you got a genetics question, you want to chat, whatever.
Go ahead and give your handles out there so people where they can reach you out. I know you got a link tree on your Instagram site, so people can reach you out in any way when they see that link tree. Give them your handles.
While social media is crapping on growers and anybody that posts weed pictures, the best way to ever find me is www.terpfiend.com. That's TERPFI3ND.com. You can sign up for the email mailing list. That's going to be there no matter what happens to Instagram tomorrow. Instagram could shut my 4th page down in 2 years. Who knows? But at Instagram, at TerpFiend, TERP_FI3ND. You can usually find my link tree there and find all my other social media. I'm usually either growing weed, talking shit, or getting myself into trouble somewhere. Like I said, I spent a lot of time trolling on the web for many, many years, back when we called social media bulletin board systems, up until modern days today. So I've been around the troll universe, and I've heard it all. This is the first time I've ever been on camera because, we talk a little shit from time to time too.
I appreciate
it's all good fun, man.
I appreciate you being on camera with us. And
weed jokes. It's all just weed jokes,
man. I love it. We're also going to do a giveaway here soon. We'll announce it after the episode comes out. But after Thanksgiving, I know Big Earl's got a Discord now. I know Terp, you got a Discord. So we'll figure it out. what Discord we'll get on, and then invite everybody on there. We'll do. I sent Big Earl a big spin wheel thing that we could do a giveaway, and I know Big Earl wants to give away some beans and some gear, maybe 8 decades, and Weedman will throw some gear, and we'll have some fun. Give everybody on there after the episode launches and after Thanksgiving. So we'll make sure we take care of it all, and we'll have some fun with everybody and answer questions and have some laughs and get baked as fuck.
I'm gonna send you some seeds to do some giveaways with too.
Sweet. Thanks, Terp. I appreciate you. So you got anything else, Terp, before we end the show?
Nah, man. Like I said, I'm also on Reddit, also on Twitter. Find me somewhere. Find my seeds. Thanks for everybody that supports my work. I've pretty much gotten to where I'm at today by word of mouth, by people finding out about my work and telling a friend. In the days of everybody's Instagram getting shut down, you really can't make it these days unless people tell other people, like, hey, this guy's got the best of what you need. So, anybody that shops with me, I appreciate everybody out there. I appreciate anybody that grows weed, talks weed. It's a beautiful time to be around and be into ganja. So,
hell yeah, love it. Big Earl, man, this is a great show. I appreciate you getting Terp on here. And, man, another grow hour in the books. Got anything else, brother?
No. Don't forget the CalMag, guys.
Don't
forget the CalMag. Do not use it as a dietary supplement. This was brought to my attention recently that you cannot use it as a dietary supplement. It was a very serious question that a friend asked me. It was a friend. It was not me. But I had to inquire. And I have to let people know as a PSA, please do not consume the CalMag, no matter how much they tell you it's going to make everything better. It's the modern essential oil.
Everybody out in the world, we love you. Thanks for listening, man. Have a great time. Smoke big fat doinks. Peace.